Another Good Gut Live. We're switching things up on this Good Gut Live. This Good Gut Live, we're doing a little react to, and we haven't really done this. We sometimes do it on Dietitian Talk, but for Good Gut Live, we're going to react to a popular YouTuber, and he's talking about gut health. But he has a background as a doctor, so it's pretty interesting. He's not just like some rando talking about gut health, but he's a full-time professional YouTuber. He's not a doctor anymore, but a Dr. Ali Abdaal. Maybe you guys have heard of him. I've watched some of his videos, but he did this whole thing on the science of gut health. So we haven't seen this video. For those of you that don't know, my name is James Marin. I'm an integrative registered dietitian, environmental nutritionist.
I'm Dahlia Marin. I'm an integrative gut health dietitian. So I'm curious to watch this
And we are full-time with Married to Health, our private practice and brand. So we don't have time to watch all these YouTube videos, but this one caught our attention because it's the science of gut health. So we want to see, is this truly the science of gut health? Does he really know what he's talking about? He has like 4 something million subscribers. So he's putting this video out there of like the science of gut health. So we want to take a look and just see. We want to see how long this goes. This might be 2 parts. So if you're watching this live, we'll take your questions as they come in. If you're watching this later, comment down below if this was entertaining, if you liked it, if you found it educational and thought-provoking, and we'll do maybe a part 2. We'll see how long this goes. Again, this is a blind reaction to the video. We haven't seen the video, and we're going to see how this goes. All right, guys.
How'd you find this video?
I found it, I don't know. It just popped up because it knows it. The algorithm knows I like gut health. That's how. So again, let's learn. We blind react. We're going to watch this video and then let's see here. And please let us know, for anyone watching, comment if you can see this video and hear this video. So that would be excellent.
Health, you might picture uncomfortable symptoms like bloating and gas and going to the loo too often. But it turns out that your gut health doesn't just affect your digestive system, it also affects your physical health, like your immune system, and your mental health, including how well you can concentrate and focus and your general productivity. This means that if we want to live healthier, happier lives, which is what we're all about here on this channel, then it might actually involve getting our guts into better shape. Now, as a doctor, I've learned a lot about the specific diseases and pathologies that can affect the gut. But in medical school, we learn a lot less about nutrition and the basics of how we can look after our gut day to day. So to learn more about this connection between the gut and the body, I interviewed one of the UK's leading experts on gut health. Sophie Medlin is a consultant dietitian specializing in gut health, chair of the British Dietetic Association, and a lecturer in King's College London, and she regularly features on TV here in the UK.
So wait a second. So hopefully you guys can hear this. Again, this is our first time kind of doing this format, but
we can see and hear it.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. I want to.
So yeah, interesting. I love how he's bringing in a gut health dietitian specifically. And
Yes.
I love how he made that kind of distinguish that and made that distinguishment, because we weren't trained in gut health in school either. This was additional training that I had to do in order to become really well versed in the gut and in order to become a certified gut nutritionist. So I really, really appreciate that he's consulting with somebody who is a specialist in this.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Bringing on a dietitian. So let's continue. That was shocking. I was like, whoa, wow, cool. So let's continue.
And I love that he admitted physicians really are severely undertrained in nutrition, which I think it's important for them to have a basic understanding, just like we're given the very basics of medication, right? We do like a week of drug nutrient interaction, and we really learn the basics of some of these drugs in our medical nutrition therapy coursework, but we are not going to be well versed in medication because that's not what our specialty is. So more and more of these schools are really starting to impart more nutrition knowledge on physicians. There are even some who have lifestyle medicine programs through their universities. So I think it's so great that he's acknowledging this great relationship between a physician and a dietitian. So I'm excited and anxious to hear what they're going to say.
In this video, we're going to be summarizing a bunch of evidence into actionable recommendations. And I hope that by applying these tips, you'll not only be pooing better, but you'll also be sleeping and focusing better as well. So let's start with the basics. What the hell is the gut? The gut, as you might know, is short for gastrointestinal tract. And this is the long tube that starts at the mouth and ends at the anus where our poo comes out. And the primary function of the gut is to break down the food that we eat, to absorb nutrients and to get rid of waste. But it's actually a lot more than that. The gut is also home to trillions of microorganisms, collectively known as the gut microbiome. And this includes all of the bacteria, fungi, and viruses that live in our digestive tracts. And these chaps help to break down the food that we eat, turning it into the nutrients that our body needs.
And how that works is that when we eat various different foods.
Can I just say another comment there? I love that. He even included viruses, the virome. He included breaking down the food, but also the gut microbiome, the virome. And I would just add, but probably, I mean, this is like a 15-minute video he did. I'm sure there wasn't enough time, but also adding the gut's primary function is to connect us to the environment as well. It is a connector. So it's not just everything he mentioned, but why is all of this there? It's that we could be connected to our environment, to our food, to our immediate environment, whether that's our backyard or the local park or nature as we call it, right? So it is also a connector. Cool. Okay.
So let's take plant fiber as an example. You eat some fruits and vegetables. They travel, the bits of it that you can't digest, the bits we can't break down, travel through to our colon, where they're fermented by different species of bacteria and yeasts and other types of microorganisms. And in that fermentation process, they produce some gas and they produce other things, but they really importantly produce some metabolites, some things that interact with our bodies.
So what does having a healthy gut actually mean? Well,
And, before we're jumping into that section of it, I think she touches on something so important. People don't realize that it's not just about the probiotics that are living in your body or other microorganisms or microbes like she was talking about. It's not just about who's there. It's about where they are and it's about what they're making. There's this whole concept of postbiotics. And these postbiotics are basically a gift of what these bacteria and other microbes take when they're being fed this prebiotic fiber. And then they give you this gift by saying, thank you for feeding me. You've taken care of me. I want to take care of you as well. Here's a little gift. One of them is called short chain fatty acids. And these really will heal up the lining of the intestines. Studies have shown they can go and decrease inflammation in the pancreas to improve your blood sugar response and your insulin. They can go to the heart to decrease cardiovascular disease risk. They can go to the liver to help support the 500 plus functions the liver carries out. They can go to the lungs to heal any lung inflammation and any type of respiratory issues one has. So when we take care of the smallest little creatures within our body, they really can take care of our body's entirety, the whole structure, the function, the balance, all of it. So those postbiotics are not to be slept on. When you have the right gut bugs and you're feeding them well, they'll take care of you in return.
Let's continue.
basically, it means having a well-balanced and diverse range of microorganisms, bacteria, viruses, fungi, and so on in our digestive tract. And so if a healthy gut is basically a healthy and balanced gut microbiome, then the next question is, why should we care about this at all? And the most obvious reason why your gut health matters is that it affects digestive disorders. Like when your gut microbiome is imbalanced, it can lead to digestive problems like bloating and constipation and diarrhea and irritable bowel syndrome.
Let's take him to Hagrid.
But the story doesn't stop there, and in the last 30 years, scientists have discovered that the effects of our gut health goes way beyond our digestive well-being.
Because our gut has a massive impact on our mental health and on our physical health and our risk of loads of different diseases and disorders. And actually, the more we look at gut health, the more we realise that it is impacting every part of our body and every system in our body.
And the way scientists know all of this is that there's now a bunch of evidence that the microorganisms in our gut that are used for digesting food interact with other parts of our body. Let's first take a look at how our gut affects our mental health. You might have heard the gut being referred to as the, quote, second brain. Or you've probably heard the phrase butterflies in the stomach, which is kind of describing the feeling of being nervous. And there's actually a good reason for this.
So there is a very strong line of communication between your gut and your brain, which we refer to as the gut-brain axis. And the chattiest organ between your brain and your gut is your gut. Your gut is constantly telling your brain all sorts of different things and
So a lot of people don't realize that 80% of signals are sent from gut to brain, and really it's only 20% of signals that are sent from brain to gut. So I would almost argue that the gut is the first control center of the body, and that is why good mood food is so important. What you feed your gut matters, because it's going to scream, whisper, or speak that back into your brain and either ask for more of it or offset your mood, offset other functions that your body is carrying out. So important to consider that.
Yes.
messages up that it's got to deal with.
So how does this gut-brain axis work? Well, it turns out that there are 3 connections between the gut and the brain that create this strong link. First, there is a chemical connection. The gut microbiome produces neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, which are chemicals in our brain that make us happy and help regulate our mood and behavior. And actually 95% of the body's serotonin, which is the happy hormone, is produced in the gut. Secondly, there is a hormonal connection through a link in the brain called the HPA axis. The HPA axis is the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. It's a complex set of interactions between the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland in your brain and the adrenal glands, which are just above your kidneys. And studies have shown that the bacteria in our gut affect the stress response of our HPA axis. And thirdly, there's actually a physical connection between the gut and the brain through the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the main nerve of our parasympathetic nervous system. This system controls specific body functions like digestion and heart rate and the immune system, generally things that are outside of our conscious control. Next up, let's talk about how our gut.
So much to be said there. I think they really succinctly summarize it. So important that we're really taking this opportunity to really acknowledge how important not only what we're feeding our gut, our stress levels as well, because our gut will eat that up as well. Our gut bugs are not just eating up the stress that we are conscious of, or the food, sorry, that we're eating. They are also eating up the stress that we are very much experiencing and very much living through. So one thing I always tell my patients is you're not just swallowing food down into your gut, you can also swallow stress down. And when you're sending that information down into your gut, then your gut buggies are feeling the stress. You have more of those inflammatory gut buggies, and they're just sending up some of those more inflammatory signals back up to your brain via the vagus nerve and through that HPA axis. So where you want to be sending up more dopamine and serotonin, since studies show 70 to 95% of our serotonin is manufactured and produced in our gut. You want that to keep you happy and chill. 50+% of our dopamine, which makes you feel happy, is produced in our gut as well. You want to be sending that up instead of some of these more stressed neurotransmitters and hormones like cortisol and epinephrine and adrenaline and all these things that just keep you wired and living in fear.
Affects our physical health. And one really important connection between the gut and our physical health is through our immune system, the complex network of organs, cells, and proteins that defend the body against infection while protecting the body's own cells.
So 70% of our immune cells live in our bowel, in our colon, and your gut bacteria are constantly interacting with them.
There's a bunch of studies showing how your gut affects your immune health. And generally what these studies do is take germ-free animals like mice that are completely free of any bacteria or other microorganisms, including those that we normally find in the gut. The scientists then change the composition of bacteria in these mice intestinal tracts and see how their immune system responds. Yes, it is a little mean, but it's the findings from these studies that show a clear link between the gut microbiome and our ability to produce and develop immune cells and antibodies. So by now we should know what gut health actually is and why it matters. So let's discuss how to actually get a healthier gut. Now, recently social media has become.
And I think that really does go back and speaks to that first 1,000 days of life that we really talk about very frequently here, where in the first 1,000 days of life, including in utero, baby's gut and brain and immune system are really developing. And now we're seeing they're actually one and the same. So when we're developing a healthy, balanced gut, we're more likely to develop a calm and ready to grow brain. We're also developing a very expandable immune system that can really be robust and really protect us. So those 3 aspects, even though they're seemingly separate, they actually are all cut from the same cloth, and they do all root back to the gut. So hopefully moms or those who want to be, carrying a baby, you really understand the impact that your health can have on that baby, because like I said, in utero, that's when those first 1,000 days of life start to kick off.
Become a hub for all things related to health and nutrition. And while there's some helpful information out there, there's also a lot of fake news that can be misleading and potentially even harmful. And this is particularly true when it comes to gut health, where people are often searching for quick fixes and miracle cures. So with all that, I asked Sophie a bunch of questions about some recent diet and nutrition trends, and she gave some solid advice about what to follow and what not to follow. So we're going to be going through 5 things that we can add and 5 things that we can remove from our diet to improve the balance and diversity of bacteria in our gut, which, as we all know by now, is what makes up a healthy gut. Tip number 1, aim for 30 different plants per week.
And the most important thing for your gut health is that you're eating 30 different plants a week, so trying to eat loads of variety of different types of plants.
So eating many different types of plant food improves our gut health by encouraging the growth of different species of bacteria that live there, especially the healthy, good bacteria. Now, plants doesn't just mean green leaves. Plants includes all fruits and vegetables, legumes like peas and lentils and tofu and canned or dried beans, grains like rice and corn and barley and oats and wheat, milks made from nuts or grains like oat milk and almond milk, and nuts and seeds like cashews and pumpkin seeds and pine nuts.
Are you all getting in your 30 plants per week? If you're wondering, I encourage you to start counting, but this is a great tip. And this was a really great study that came out of San Diego a couple of years ago. And they did show those who ate 30 or more plants per week had a more robust and balanced gut microbiome. So love that.
Now, when I first heard this, I was thinking like, how on earth am I going to get 30 different plants into my diet every week? But Sophie's tip is to break this number down into days. So over 7 days a week, that's about 4 or 5 different plants a day, and then that actually makes it feel a lot more manageable. For example, for breakfast, you can have a whole grain cereal or oatmeal topped with some seeds and nuts, and then some dried fruit on top, and then you already have 3, 4, or 5 of those plants in there for the whole day. And if you have some fruit as a mid-morning snack, and just make sure you have some amount of veg with your lunch or your dinner, then you've covered your bases as far as that goes. Tip number 2, aim for variety of diet rather than consistency of diet. So a lot of diet advice aims for consistency, especially if you're trying to lose weight or build muscle. It's a lot easier to just eat the same things every day. But if we want to optimize our gut health, what we should do instead is to aim for variety rather than consistency. And this is very much in line with the whole 30 plants per week tip. And if you have this variety in your diet, then that encourages more diversity and variety of the gut microbiome, which, as we've already discussed, is how we get a healthy gut.
So I think you can really speak to that one, James, because when I met James, you guys, I know some of you know this, you've heard me say this, James had no neck. He was this bodybuilding dude. He had no neck. He would eat the same exact things until he couldn't eat it anymore, and he would binge on other things. He had horrible protein breath. But how was your gut health, and how was your overall health when you were doing that, when you were only eating what? Eggs, broccoli, chicken, brown rice?
Pretty much, yeah. And yeah, my gut health was horrible. Well, I wouldn't say it was horrible, but like I think it was other areas of my body were starting to feel the effects. Like I had really bad allergies. I had migraines and just felt terrible. And so this is very
And you would
big.
get sick all the time.
I would get sick all the time. And this
Mhm.
is very big in the fitness and bodybuilding community, where you just meal plan for like a month or freeze stuff and just eat the same thing over and over again because it's easy to count calories and macros and things like that. It's not conducive. That's one thing we say now. It's not conducive to gut health. It's not conducive to cellular health. And it's important to get that diversity and that variety. It's extremely, extremely important.
And we do really see this often. I often have patients say, well, eating all this diversity of plants in my diet and, not really calorie counting, I've gained a couple pounds. I've gained 2 or 3 pounds.
Right.
And I'm like, yes, you probably will gain a couple of pounds if you're eating extra diversity. You might be getting in, might not be, but you might be getting in a few extra calories. But also, if your gut is healing and you were previously eating like James used to and seeing all this undigested broccoli and greens and food in your stool, you weren't absorbing all the calories and nutrients you could. Your gut was probably in such an inflamed and irritated state that it wasn't properly digesting food. You were having rapid transit. Your body was just like, ugh, I'm too inflamed. I can't even bother breaking this down completely and digesting it. So you weren't digesting it completely. That's why you're seeing undigested food in your stool a lot of times when you have gut issues. So if you're suddenly not seeing that anymore, you're like, oh yeah, wow, my stool stays formed. It's brown, it's uniform. I don't see undigested food and I'm gaining a few pounds. That's probably where it's coming from. And I always say, focus on quality of the way that you feel before you're focused on quantity and macros and calories. And that will not lead you to your best gut health or your #good gut.
And so far, really well done on this video, I think, so far.
Great
This
tidbits.
is great.
Number 3, aim for 30 grams of fiber every day.
Most people in England eat less than half of what they actually need in terms of fibre every day.
So fiber is a type of carbohydrate that we don't break down. And instead of being digested and absorbed, it travels to the large intestine, the colon. And when it's in the large intestine, it acts as a prebiotic. And prebiotic means basically food for the good bacteria in the body. Now, it's pretty hard to tell how much fiber you're getting in your diet unless you're a nutrition pro, so here are some tips. So firstly, as a rough guide, aiming for 5 servings of fruit and veg and having whole grains with 2 of your 3 meals per day, and including things like seeds and nuts and dried fruits for snacks, will get you most of the way there to getting all of the fiber that you need. Secondly, you can find ways to swap out foods in your diet for high fiber alternatives. So for example, whole grain rice is more high fiber than white rice. And thirdly, if you really want, you can actually calculate the amount of fiber in your diet and get to this 30 grams. And here are some options of like different foods throughout the day that would add up to that 30 grams. Tip number 4, aim.
And you can count if you wanted to. I love focusing on counting servings over adding everything to a program, but we like programs like Chronometer. I think that could be a great way to just kind of check in with yourself and be like, hey, how much fiber am I getting? We were shook when we did this for ourselves. We were counting. I
Shook
was
in a good
getting
way.
in a minimum of like 70 to 75 grams a day. James eats more calories than I do because he's just
I'm a bigger
bigger
beast.
person. And how much fiber were you getting in on average?
Like one day I got like 90, but on average, no, I think I'm on
Mhm.
average like maybe closer to 80 or 75, 80, but
Yeah.
it's still a lot of fiber. And yeah, right now in the US, I know I'm guessing they're based in the UK with a UK dietitian, but in the US, 97% of you guys are not getting enough fiber. Like that's crazy. And the
Mhm.
fiber, even the recommended fiber intake, I think is low. Like 30
28
30
to 35
grams.
grams a day.
Yeah, it's like nothing. I get that for breakfast. So it's but it
And this
takes
isn't a
time.
flex. It's just like, you guys, we did it. You could do it
Yeah,
too.
totally. All right, let's keep going. We're
Aim to take a probiotic. Now, probiotics are foods or supplements that contain live microorganisms that are intended to maintain or improve the good bacteria in the gut. Now, this point is a little bit controversial because the evidence is not like wholeheartedly in favor of a probiotic, but there have been a bunch of studies showing that they have good effects.
So there's some great research on probiotics and both the gut-brain axis, so how when we're stressed we have these gut symptoms and how probiotics can help to control those gut symptoms. So one in particular, so there's 55 healthy volunteers given a probiotic, another group are given a placebo, so we can measure the difference. The ones who have the probiotic have a significant reduction of psychological stress, significant reduction in cortisol, so these like chemical parameters of stress and anxiety that we can measure. So it's not just how people say they're feeling, it's these objective measures.
Now, when it comes to taking probiotics, there's a few different options out there. They either come in the form of tablets or in the form of bottles, but you've got to be aware of what the manufacturer and expiry date is, because if it's been sitting on the shelf for ages, then it might not be as effective as it was when you first bought it. And actually, conveniently, the company Heights has actually made a smart probiotic, which I take every day, and they are very kindly sponsoring this video. Now, I've been taking Heights, the
go.
Brain Care Smart supplement, for over 2 years now, and what I love
so
That
this
was
is great.
clever.
Very clever. I was wondering why, but very well done. Like, why do these YouTubers? I mean, it was really well done. I mean, guys, when you know the background of running a business and doing social media, like those graphics and editors, and I'm sure he has a whole production team. And we have some questions coming in. I love it. For those who are watching live, pop questions down below or in the comments down below afterwards. But yeah, to give you guys a back end, it's like, why go through all this, right? And we don't see many famous YouTubers going like, I'm going to talk about gut health. And I know he has a medical background, but looking at his YouTube, he talks about so many different things. And it's a sponsor. He's sponsored by a probiotic supplement, and supplement companies can have some deep pockets, and they're probably
Yes.
paying him very well. Just to be completely honest,
We get emails every week from a new supplement
oh my
company
gosh,
saying, hey, we want to do a sponsored post with you. And
guys,
we're
the
like,
amount of
I
money
know.
we've turned down is, I don't even want to think about it. But we only promote what we really, really believe in and like, first and foremost. But going back to this, it's so nice to see. I mean, it's a really well done video. So great if they sponsored it. It's up to you guys to buy it, but it's a really well done video. So far, I'm agreeing with a lot of what they're saying, and I think it's really well done. The graphics and everything. Let's take a little break. Is it possible to eat too much?
Well, before we get into that question, I don't
Okay.
want to sleep on this point because I think you're kind
Oh,
of
what's
jumping
the
the gun
point?
there.
What's up?
He is promoting a probiotic
Okay.
capsule because
Oh.
he was paid by this company who sponsored the video. I don't want people to sleep on probiotic foods. I think, yes, capsules could be a little bit more exact. So sometimes I will recommend probiotics to my patients if they are having, especially any type of inflammatory symptoms, if they are having elevated inflammatory markers in their stool, calprotectin, lactoferrin, if they're having shooting sharp pains in their colon during, before, after a bowel movement, if they have certain autoimmune conditions, constipation, sometimes I will recommend a probiotic, not always, but I will recommend probiotic capsules. But before I recommend a capsule, I always recommend probiotic foods. There were some incredible studies that came out in the last couple of years, a meta-analysis, and then another great study out of Stanford on probiotic foods. And, they did find between these couple studies, these 2-3 studies that came out, those who were consuming 4 to 6 servings of probiotic foods per day had more of a robust immune system. They had lower inflammatory markers. They had a greater diversity and richer abundance of microbes and bacteria in their gut. So food can have the same effect. And I love how food is both a prebiotic in the fiber that it often contains and a probiotic, especially if it is a fermented food. So some of our favorite probiotic foods, and if you guys want to learn more about it, we've done a YouTube video on it and a live on probiotics, but some of our favorites, kimchi, if you can handle some spice. We do sauerkraut as well. We love tempeh as long as you're not really cooking it too high of a temperature. Miso is wonderful. Some unsweetened kombucha. We were drinking some earlier. We got fancy with it and
Put
added
blueberries in it.
frozen blueberries as our ice cubes because we're fancy like that. But an unsweetened kombucha is great. And then, we have other things available to us as well. Dairy-free yogurt. Some of the dairy-free cheeses have strains added to them. You have water kefir and other dairy-free kefir as well. So before you're investing in some probiotics that can be really expensive, sometimes they are warranted. But before you do that, see if you can stomach some of the foods. And if you're saying, okay, you're telling me to eat sauerkraut, but every time I eat any cruciferous vegetable, my gas smells like rotten eggs. I'm not going to do that. Okay, maybe you have such deep dysbiosis, you have more of those sulfur reducers. Don't start there. Don't start with kimchi then. Start with miso. Start with kombucha. Start with a little bit of a kefir or a dairy-free yogurt. Don't start with the stuff you can't tolerate because you're setting yourself up for failure. Start with the things that you feel like you could eventually tiptoe in. And maybe you're not going from 0 servings to 6 servings in one day. Maybe you're starting with a teaspoon because you're rearranging things when you are adding more probiotics to your gut. Sometimes people feel fine when they're taking them, but they have actually done a really robust meta-analysis, and they showed that when people did not need probiotics, they could lead them to feel fatigued and have brain fog and more bloat. So if you don't need the extra healthy bacteria and you're just taking it willy-nilly, you could actually feel worse on a probiotic. Everything needs to be in its balance and be in its place. And somebody's even asking, is it possible to overdose on probiotics? What do you think, James?
Is it possible to now overdose in a sense of, is it going to kill you? Probably not. Overdose in a sense of having too many of the same types of colony forming units? Yes, I think so. I think you could totally overwhelm your gut. I think you can totally overwhelm the balance in your gut. I think if you have IBS or any type of gut symptoms and you don't know if you already have an overgrowth, probiotics like Dahlia mentioned can make things worse. So yeah, you can overdose in a sense of as if you had a garden and you just like bought, those ladybugs you could buy at the garden stores and you just started flooding your garden with ladybugs. Like, don't get me wrong, ladybugs are great and they can be very helpful in your garden, but you don't just want to buy package and package of ladybug and there's just ladybugs all over your garden. Like, that is not a balance of your ecosystem, right? So maybe you'll need 1 pack of ladybugs and then they'll start to help and eat the aphids and make your garden wonderful. But that doesn't mean you need 100 packs of ladybugs, right?
Maybe you need some butterflies and worms.
You got to get that
need some
diversity.
others. And I think what people don't realize is you have thousands of strains of microbes, bacteria, yeast, fungi, archaea, all these different things, viruses, protozoa. When you're taking a probiotic, sometimes there's 2, 3, 10 strains and a lot of them, right? You're taking 50 billion colony forming units, 100 billion colony forming units. If you've identified and narrowed in, these are the strains I need, that could be great for you. But if somebody else does not need those strains, they could actually outcrowd some other healthy bacteria if they're overdosing on these 4 different things, because then you're not really tending to the other ones who might need a little bit of TLC unless you're really making sure you feed all of them sufficiently with fiber. And the analogy that I like to give with taking a probiotic is it's almost like a tourist destination. Your gut could be like a tourist destination. If the tourist has a bad experience there, if it's an unhospitable environment, if it's uncomfortable for it, if the tourists are hungry while they're there, they're not going to want to stay. But we all know that person who is like, oh my gosh, I went to this place on vacation. I loved it so much. I'm moving there. That is how your probiotics could be as well. If you treat them well, you feed them well with enough prebiotic fiber, you're trying not to be super stressed and they're not stressed out when they're in your gut, they can actually just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to move here. I'm going to have my family here. I want to create a life here. The goal is that you're not taking a probiotic capsule forever. You don't want it to be transient, in one day, out the other. You do really want to treat it well so it moves into your gut. So make sure that you're checking in. Even if you do take a probiotic and you start feeling better, I always recommend to check in every 3 months. Try stopping it and see if you feel worse off of it. If you do, maybe continue it for another 3-month period. If you don't feel any worse or any better when you stop it, stop taking it. It's expensive poop for you and you don't need that probiotic. So I guess in essence, you could almost over micromanage your gut with certain probiotics.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? There are more questions popping
These
in.
are great questions. So somebody's asking about, can you talk? Oh, I love this question. Can you talk about refrigerated versus non-refrigerated probiotic capsules? Ooh, that's a really great question. So we actually got to talk about this too. We went live with the founder of Seed, and Seed is a common, it's a symbiotic. So they have the prebiotic and the probiotic in there. So it's that blend of the fiber with the probiotic. And he is so knowledgeable, but he was breaking down for us that actually you want to be weary of refrigerated probiotics a lot of the time. Your stomach acid is not going to be very conducive. Your body maintains a specific temperature. So if you're worried about it not surviving outside of the refrigerator, how on earth would it survive throughout your high body temperature and your stomach acid? So, I would say I'm kind of suspicious with probiotics that insist on being refrigerated and ones that don't have an expiration date on them. When they are writing an expiration date on it, it's not that it goes bad after that date. You could still take these things. They're guaranteeing that the amount that they're claiming on the label is there until it expires. So they've tested it and they've shown this has a 3-month shelf life. This has a 3-year shelf life. This has whatever. After that date, we can't guarantee that it has 20 billion colony forming units or however much. So those are kind of what I use as markers of a probiotic that I would recommend or that I would buy myself if I needed to take one. So I usually don't even recommend the refrigerated probiotics because what if you have to travel? Do you not take your probiotics? And what if you feel better taking them and then you can't refrigerate them? What do you do? And then how do you know if it even has what it claims to have?
And to nerd out a little bit more, and that goes back to like what we usually see as CFU. We've been talking about colony forming units. There's also AFU. And so that's very different, right? So the AFU is actually the more active and it's better measured of what the actual bacteria in this supplement's doing. I wonder what this supplement that Ali is promoting measures it by and how they're testing and do they third-party test. So
yeah, I'm not familiar with it.
I'm not familiar with this. And so, yeah, I want to maybe look into that a little bit more. And this is where check with the dietitian, right? If it's great to do things on your own, empower yourself, get knowledge, but there's usually a pretty deep rabbit hole of context that you need to go down. It's not as simple as like just buy a probiotic at Costco or something. It's like, no, you want to know what you're taking. So yeah, really. And so overall, long story short with this, refrigerated, non-refrigerated, it's more about the quality, third-party testing, and AFU.
So this is a great question as well. Somebody's asking about a specific probiotic. What do you think of the Pendulum brand Akkermansia probiotic? I just started taking it for gut health and wondering if it's worth it.
Are you familiar with Pendulum brand?
I'm familiar with Akkermansia. So Akkermansia is a very important strain in the gut. It's one of the most responsible for making those short chain fatty acids. So again, if you've been struggling with leaky gut, autoimmunity, gut inflammation, maybe you might be low on some of these short chain fatty acid producers that are producing things like butyrate, propionate, acetate. Akkermansia is very well known to be one of those primary species that is making some of these. What we do know is if you need it, it can be helpful. We do know antioxidant-rich foods can also increase your Akkermansia. So things like bitter grapes, pomegranate, dark red berries. You want to be making sure, that you're getting in plenty of herbs and spices. So get in those foods And if you need a little bit of help on top of that, it's something I've recommended very few times to my patients. It's really just when we have evidence that they might need one. But I think if you don't know that you need it, it's extremely expensive. So unless you're very positive that you are low on akkermansia, you've had a very reliable stool test done, which I say that with caution because none of them are 100% reliable at
Mhm.
this point. The science just isn't there yet. But unless you're 100% sure that that's what you need, you may be unnecessarily really spending on something that isn't going to necessarily benefit your gut health. But if you need it, could help. I have had patients who do need it, who have told me that it is helping with their leaky gut and their symptoms. But I've had other people say they spent a lot of money on different probiotics and they did not help them. Like sometimes you guys, it's upwards of $100 for 60 capsules of these probiotics. So be mindful because if you're adding up debt and that's stressing you out, that's also deleterious to your gut health.
Yeah. Yeah. Really good
Mhm.
questions. Should
Yes.
you want to answer
Those
more
are
or what are you
great.
feeling?
Yeah. I think we have a couple of really great questions. Um, Someone's asking, are there any specific foods to have when taking probiotics to increase their absorption? Ooh, I love that.
Very good. It's interesting. I mean, the foods we eat on a day-to-day basis will have microbes in them. So they're in their tissue. It's interesting. I mean, we're still figuring out because once you literally put the food in your mouth, the microbes in that food, or if you're taking a probiotic, will also affect the oral microbiome. It'll basically affect you have multiple sections of microbiome, so to speak, from the mouth to the anus, right? So basically the colonic microbiome is not going to resemble the oral microbiome, right? You don't want it to. Um, and so there's going to be from mouth to anus a vast spectrum of microbes. Now, everything you eat and a probiotic you take will affect all those different
Mhm.
ecologies or areas, so to speak. So, what can you do? I mean, it's really building the ecosystem in which they're entering. Like Dahlia mentioned, right? Is it going to be a tourist and be there one day and then gone tomorrow?
And be like, no one go there.
No one go there. Oh my gosh, it's horrible. Or is it going to go, wow, this place is amazing. I want to take up residence here. So it's really not what you can eat with the supplement or probiotic supplement. It's really more of what is the environment you're consistently making on a day-to-day basis so that when you do take a supplement, but the beauty here is like usually if you're doing that, then you might probably not need a probiotic supplement, right? But in the case you maybe do, then that's going to be so much better. It's just like again, I go back to garden analogies because it works so well. If you have a garden with extremely hard soil, we've all seen that soil where
Mm,
it resembles concrete,
water just like won't even absorb it.
like it doesn't even absorb, and you can literally like step on it like it's concrete. If you try to plant a beautiful fig tree or something there, is it gonna survive? Maybe, probably not. It's gonna need a lot of help, right? Versus going to a truly lush garden where there's mulch and
Mm.
compost and I mean
It's nice and
healthy.
cushioned when you step on it.
Yeah, a healthy garden. We have friends who have beautiful gardens,
Mhm.
and we step back there and it feels like you're walking on a sponge because when you lift that soil, it's literally like chocolate cake. It's like you're mushing chocolate cake. It is spongy and moist, and it is, I mean, you can dig in it forever, and that is where something will thrive. Which one is your gut? Is it hard as cement? Is it spongy like this beautiful chocolate cake? And that's the big question because then when you do eat foods with microbes, when you do take a probiotic, they're more likely to take up residence. And we're still figuring that out, that synergistic effect. So
Mhm.
that's what I'd recommend.
So yeah, make the environment great for them. Give them enough water. Give the things you would want, right? Give them enough water. You want to give them enough fiber to feed off of both types
Definitely
of fiber,
fiber.
soluble and insoluble fiber, ones that drink up water and act like a mop, ones that just sweep things through like a broom. You want to
Mhm.
decrease their stress, right? Who wants to go somewhere where they're feeling super stressed and anxious and give them rest? If you're not
Mhm.
properly sleeping and resting yourself, your microbes don't have that opportunity to kind of rest and sleep either. So those are the things that are going to increase chances that you're going to be successful with taking probiotics and that they're going to take up residence as well. And I always think probiotics can be sometimes helpful as a form of catch up, right? If you feel like, man, my early half of life was rough. I did not really eat much fiber. I took tons of antibiotics. I grew up in a stressful home. I wasn't breastfed. Mom wasn't able to vaginally deliver me. I maybe am in debt, right? Then probiotics could kind of catch you up and help with that. But food first, for sure. Get in your probiotic foods and also get in your fiber. And this last question I think is really great. Someone's asking, is it possible to eat too much fiber?
Yes, totally. It can constipate you, especially if you're like not hydrating and not doing these other things. You're just like, I just need more fiber. I heard somewhere from Delia or James, or I heard somewhere on TikTok or social media, I need more fiber, especially if you take like a fiber powder
Tuck,
and you just go nuts with it. Yeah, if you're not ready for it, your microbiome's not ready for it. Again, the analogy I think of taking a hard garden that's not ready, and you go like, I'm gonna buy all these things from the garden center and just plant them there, and they all die. It's like it wasn't ready. You gotta work your way and prepare that soil to house these healthy plants. It's the same thing with fiber.
And you want to take your lifestyle into consideration. Like, should you put kids and athletes on an extremely high fiber diet? Probably not, because it's going to be so filling
Yeah.
for them. They're probably not eating enough calories. So, yes, absolutely. Depending on the context, there definitely is too much fiber. Interestingly, they have found calcified fossilized stool from the Paleolithic age. And, despite the claims of people at paleo that, people weren't really eating tons of plant foods, they're more animal based, that really does depend on the region. But they found that they were eating sometimes upwards of 200 grams of fiber in a day in this fossilized stool.
Which we're not saying to do,
No.
because I'm sure they didn't really
that
have
might have
that.
killed them.
Yeah, they really didn't have that longevity. I'm sure they were like maybe starving some days and chewing on bark. Like there's literally survival recipes where you can boil bark and eat it. It's not a nutritious, really dense, nutrient dense food we'd recommend. So not saying you have to go to that extreme, but also not the extreme of like only eating meat and no fiber. That really doesn't work. So
Yeah, find your balance, understand your lifestyle, understand how much fiber makes you feel good and how much makes you feel too bloated or too constipated, or gives you diarrhea because you're not really able to digest and break it down, and it's just speeding things up too much. And we can't sign off without answering this, because I feel
Okay.
like this gets so much hype with pH and
Oh, yeah.
alkaline.
Alkaline
There's a whole
diets.
alkaline cult out there.
Dr. CB. Dr. CB, we're familiar. Yeah, I mean,
So-
with this, I would probably say that
How does the pH of the gut
yeah.
influence the microbiome? Do you recommend alkaline diets for gut health?
so I would probably say first and foremost is alkaline water, right? We see that everywhere. We see that in stores, influencers, and all that. Now, what you want to understand is you're usually drinking water when you're eating. I mean, you could drink water without eating, but you're drinking some type of liquid when you're eating. And do you want that liquid to be basic or alkaline when you're eating and you're trying to raise the acid in your stomach? The answer is no. There's more studies coming out on this, and this is, I mean, because of the lack of studies, I would say this is our theory, but it's a pretty strong theory that we've heard from a lot of patients, whereas they're consuming large amounts of alkaline water when eating and they have stomach problems. So it makes sense that the alkaline water is kind of canceling out some of the acid in the stomach and causing problems. Now, the overall, your body being alkaline is kind of an oversimplification and also kind of a misnomer, I guess you could say, where your body has mechanisms in place to maintain the pH balance, right?
It's extremely important for your kidney health, for your blood, for your lungs, for your
Yeah.
heart. If your pH either goes way too high or way too low, you could die. So
Right.
your body's extremely intelligent in helping to buffer that acid alkaline balance. There are instances in which it could be slightly off. Again, maybe you have kidney disease, lung disease,
Mhm.
diabetes, and you have things like ketoacidosis. Those are life threatening. So You don't really want to mess with something that is extremely specific and highly intelligent and, you know,
But I will say where the truth comes in is where these alkaline diets or lifestyles get it right is eating more plant foods. A lot
yeah,
of the alkaline
they're whole
diets
foods.
are whole food plant based. So it's like,
Yep.
yeah, eating more plants. It's not that it's making your body's pH go really high and become basic. It's that it's providing your body everything it needs to maintain a healthy pH balance. So you're not getting ketoacidosis, your lungs are healthy, your kidneys are healthy, and they're maintaining a healthy balance. It really goes back to short chain fatty acids. When you're eating these plant foods, giving your body fiber, your gut is producing short chain fatty acids and literally keeping all your organ systems healthy and functioning properly, which includes your kidneys and your gut and your gallbladder, and I mean, so much more. So it's all connected. So it's again, clarification, it's not that it's making your body more alkaline, it's just it's keeping your body healthy and giving it everything it needs to create that eubiosis, homeostasis. It's that balance, right?
Mhm. And, again, if you don't feel like it's something you really need or something that a professional has identified you really could use some help with, be very mindful. Because I actually have had a handful of SIBO patients say, my SIBO came on after I really became obsessed with alkaline water and I was drinking it with my food. If you're guzzling down cups and cups, ounces and ounces, gallons of alkaline water with your food, you're diluting your stomach acid. You need
Yeah.
it to be acidic when you are eating. You need that acid to break apart your food. Why would you drink something that's raising the pH, making it less acidic? You are less likely to properly digest that food when you're having it with alkaline water. So please don't do that.
And
Don't have alkaline water with your food. If you do want to drink it, something I always say is try to have it an hour or two away from any food, medication, or supplements so you're best digesting and absorbing them.
I thought of a funny. I'll never forget. I won't say who, but someone was taking, and it can also go the other way, where there's also health professionals out there that maybe are on the more functional side that say take acid pills, HCl pills. You need more acid in your stomach, and I'll never forget. I won't say who, but it was someone who's taking antacids with an acid pill. And so when you get into this polypharmacy and you're taking all these pills, a lot of the times some can counteract one another, especially when you get into supplements and medications and things like that, where one doctor is saying take this and another doctor is saying take that, and they're just canceling each other out. So I don't know, that reminded me of it.
Hmm.
But
I will say though, there are certain instances in which maybe somebody needs a little bit of extra stomach
oh
acid.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't
No,
want
but
to
I'm saying
discount that.
taking a stomach acid with an
Yeah,
antacid
don't do that.
is
That's
doesn't make sense.
that's bananas. Well, guys, we always say we're going to keep it short and sweet, but we don't
But
because we can talk all day about this. So we appreciate you tuning in. We so appreciate these amazing questions that we received today. Such great, intelligent questions. Let us know if you want to see the rest of this video, if you want
yeah,
us
should
to
we do
do
a part
part
two?
two and react to the rest of it because they
I'm
really got
almost thinking
into
like a
5 things we should add. And then we didn't get into 5 things that we should avoid. And we really want to know what are the other things that they're recommending that people are avoiding for your best gut health. So let us know if these are things that you want us to really take you through. If you want to see our reaction to the rest of the video after the sponsored post is done, and then we'll talk about 5 things that they suggest that you remove for your best gut health. But this was fun.
all right, part two.
Let us
Let
know.
us know, guys. All right. As always, it's great talking and answering your questions. This is our Good Gut Live. And you can find out more about us at marytalk.com. And we will do a Good Gut Live at least once a month. A dietitian talk is also once a month.
Mhm.
And we will see you all very soon. Remember to heal with each meal and have a wonderful Friday and weekend. Bye, everybody.
Bye.